Hi Ola, how you doing? Hey Anka, good morning Vel. Hope everyone is well. Brand new week, it is Monday again. We get to do some more trades, hopefully. Well, it feels like a long time since we last spoke. Good to be back with you guys. Hey Bjorn, how you doing? Good morning. It wasn't exactly a long weekend, it was just a busy, busy weekend. Or busy week. Busy Friday and then a weekend. So it wasn't a long weekend holiday. But yes, I did enjoy my weekend. How did you guys? How was your weekend? I enjoy every day. Every day is a good. Hey BL, how you doing? Hi Haida. Anyone got onto an interesting trade? Good morning, Santa. Fine. South Africa. Good to have you with us. Hi AYJ, how you doing? 2 more minutes before we get started. Meantime, do me that favor. If you are new to the session, drop a message, say hi, let me know where you're joining us from. If you guys know the drill, I say this every time we do a stream. Drop a message, say hi, let us know where you're joining us from. Could be the first person in a new place that we're getting a viewer, so that we a special thing. Nice to see you, Anka. Oh, nice to see your nickname there. Right, if you haven't already, the link is there for the Discord channel. Do make sure you join, and after you've joined, you do have a chance to jump on the one-on-one session together with me. So we've been doing that. I think I've done about 20 over calls already. So it's still available. It's still there for you guys to book a session. Jump onto one-to-one, ask a question, ask many questions about how to get your trading better. Can help you with that. Hi, Beck. How are you doing? Willie Trade Review from South Africa. Good to see you. Welcome to this stream. So we do this stream, this daily market analysis live almost every day, 3 p.m. GMT plus 8, where I will be sharing with you my thoughts, points of view, ideas of fundamentals in terms of what has happened, what is coming up. We look at the technicals in terms of price, where it is, combine that together, look for some possible trade setups, possibly projections in the H1 time frame with support, resistance, with stop loss levels, take profit levels all in place. Share with you my watch list. Okay, so if you're new to the session, same thing, drop a message, say hi. I hope this becomes a regular. I hope you become a regular onto this session, because we are here to share with you some hopefully very profitable trade setups. If you haven't already, do join the Discord channel, because that's where we can take our discussion on this 1 hour session. Through the day, I'll be sharing with you any trade setups, any news releases. If I get into a trade, why am I getting into a trade? Why am I getting out of a trade? What am I doing with the trade in terms of moving stop loss levels or looking to close early? it's all going to be there. So do make sure you join Discord channel. Got one viewer from Thailand. Good to see you. How are you doing? Good morning, Jordan. How are you doing? So with all that, if you do have any questions at any point in time, please feel free, put it into the chat. Let me know. Any particular pairs you'd like me to look at, put it into the chat and let me know as well. Okay, so let's keep going. Quick disclaimer, any information contained on this webinar should not be construed as advice and is presented as educational material only. So please do your own due diligence. Since of this webinar is not intended to be a recommendation to trade a financial product. Your objectives, financial situation, and needs has not been considered, and you should consider its appropriateness to your circumstances. Okay, I was going to say something as well, which I kind of forgot. Yes, how is the sound? Last week we had some issues with sound. Hope it's sounding sharp and crisp. No jitters. Beyond's asking for the US yen. We'll get to that. Jacob from Kuwait, how are you doing? My first Kuwaiti viewer, so good to have you with us. Hey Godju, good morning. Val says the sound is great. If it's great for Val, it's great for everyone else. So let's keep going. Here we are on Forex Factory. Thanks for that, Val. Thanks for that, Anka and AYJ. So here we are on Forex Factory looking at the news. We did not have a session on Friday, so I'm just going to do a quick review of what happened on Friday. Scrolling back. Hey, 5 Steps to Grace, how are you doing? Jacob, right? So on Friday, one of the reasons why we didn't have a session, firstly because schedule was jam-packed, and secondly, there wasn't a lot of news being released, so I thought that we're heading into the weekend, we might not see a lot of activities. Somewhat true. On Friday, we did have the pound retail sales number was 0.7, got revised down to 0.7 or revised down to 0.6. Expected to be a minus 0.6, came out at a minus 1.2. So big drop in retail sales number for the UK. This was at 2 p.m. GMT plus 8. And you see that for the pound dollar at that time, 2 p.m. on a Friday, right there. Right? So we saw the pound dollar go from 1.2745, went straight down towards 1.2712, pretty much sat around that point before consolidating right across. So despite that drop, saw a quick recovery and still consolidated between 1.27 and 1.2750. So it didn't change too much on Friday, despite that retail sales number being minus 1.2. Okay, apart from that, Euro CPI stayed as expected, stayed as previous and expected at 5.3 and 5.5, and not much else. So if we scroll through the charts, you would see that prices did not change too much on Friday. Very choppy at a round number level or at a support level. So we didn't miss too much from Friday. Looking on to today, over the weekend, what we did have was not great news coming from China, where they had big developers going to bankruptcy. They had defaults on payouts. Just early this morning or early today, we did have the PBOC cutting the 1-year rates, right? Trying to stimulate the economy, trying to pump, well, a bit of a QE, trying to pump it up, but didn't have the big impact was expected because it's only a relatively small cut of the 1-year rates. So that's the main thing that's casting a shadow across the markets right now. You'd see that Chinese 1-year loan prime rate ran from a 3.55 to a 3.45, a small cut there, while the 5-year went at 4.2. Okay, so apart from that, no big surprises. Tuesday, again, nothing much. CPI from the Bank of Japan looking to go from 3 to a 2.9 as a BRIC summit coming up, and that would be it. Okay, so for today and tomorrow, not a lot of news. Not a lot of big high impact news. I think that this is possibly going to lead to not a lot of setups. What we might see from here is a bit of a consolidation, right? Setting up for a breakout. So I would urge that patience, don't feel like you have to rush into a trade. I was just talking to one of our traders about this an hour ago. Don't feel like you have to rush into a trade. You're sitting there, you're watching. It might be trending. It was trending before, consolidating now. Don't feel like you can't force a trade. You can't make the market move. So what you should be looking at now is, okay, with the way it's moving, if it does break a level, plan for that breakout, plan to be able to take advantage of the breakout. If not, then wait for it. It might be a setup that does not trigger. Then when the price moves, we'll reevaluate and look for the next setup. Okay, so don't feel like you have to always be entering trades, despite that being your job as a trader. You don't want to be sitting there thinking that you have to enter a trade. There's no way you can move the market, right? So we're going to take advantage of market movements, not try and move the market. Hey Goju, hey Emir, good morning, how you doing? Hi Spiros. Okay, so with that, then on to Wednesday, we have a whole bunch of PMI numbers to be released. On to Thursday, unemployment numbers for the US, business climates on Friday, and then we have Chair Powell speaking on Friday night. That's at the Jackson Hole Symposium that goes through the weekend on a Saturday. Jackson Hole Symposium, President Lagarde speaking from the ECB, and then on to Sunday as well. Okay, so the question we had in our Discord channel was, with the Jackson Hole Symposium on Friday, or Friday through Saturday and Sunday, does this mean we're going to have a quiet trading session for this week? I don't think it will be necessarily because of the Jackson Hole Symposium. From my experience, previous Jackson Hole Symposiums, we do see normal trading all the way up to the symposium. If something crazy or something on a major scale is said during the symposium on a Saturday or Sunday, then we're likely to see a gap next Monday. Right? We could see a gap next Monday. What I mean by something crazy, it could very well be Chair Powell or President Lagarde talking about their plans for further rate hikes or pausing of rates. Okay, right now it looks like the idea of further rate hikes to come from the FOMC seems to be slowly increasing again, especially for the September meeting. So it's something to watch out for. If over the weekend they say something like no more rate hikes, then we're going to see a big gap. If he doesn't make any comments about rate hikes or further rate hikes, then we're going to see the symposium or the Jackson Hole Symposium pretty much just pass through with no major influence on the markets. Okay, so just be careful. I don't think it's so much this week, but just be careful on Friday, which I will remind you again on Friday. Possibly best idea would be to go flat or neutral in your positions on Friday, because you just never know how it's going to gap over the weekend. But that's all in the next couple of days. We'll talk about that as it comes around. For today and tomorrow, looks like pretty clear skies or pretty clear news events where it should might see some setups depending on how prices move. Okay, so with that, then we look at the charts. Good morning, Diana. How are you doing? Hey, Angel Case. Good morning. So this is the dollar index. We're not on the 17th of August. We are on the 21st of August. Change that. Right. So the last time we spoke, we said that the dollar index was likely to consolidate along 103 or retrace to 103.30 before bouncing. It came right down to that 103, almost 103.20 level before bouncing back up, but it still got capped by that 103.55 resistance level. Went as high as 103.60 before remaining within this range. So, common question is, looking at the range right now, I'm looking at this being in between this support level of 103.20. I could revise this a little bit. Take it down to this. Let's look at this. I'll look at it as 103.15 because I'm considering this point. Take that away. Take that one away. I'm looking at this 23.6 level being held. Right from this big move up, 23.6 held at 103. I think it's going to continue within this range with some downside potential. Okay, so what I'm looking at here, we saw a big move to the upside held by this resistance level here. So only looking for continuation if it breaks above this point. Is it going to be a big downward move? I don't think so. So I think that is going to, as a matter of elimination, I'm taking away that upward move because it needs to break above this resistance. Looking at this point as a support, so I think it's going to range within these levels. I think it's going to do this, right, as an idea, or it could do this as it will come down, bounce around this point before maybe trading the downside. But this might be a bit longer term. Right, I'm just checking my trend line. So trend line with this level here, again, if I did drag this upside, you'll see that this would coincide quite nicely where it come down towards this 103.15, bounce around this point, supported by the trend line as well. Okay, so what I'll be looking for here in terms of the dollar index, add in one more point. I don't think you'll do that. Okay, so I think dollar index, we could look at it trading slightly lower to 103.15 and consolidate long support. Right? Then if it does break trend line to reach 10.8 to break trend line, reach 102.8. So that's what I think is going to happen on okay. So with that said, I think that trading slightly lower towards 103.50, we come down to this point and consolidate along this support area. If it does break that trend line, then we could see it trade down towards 102.8. Right? So there's a two-part move that we're looking at for the dollar index. And I would be quite happy with that. Right, I'm just considering this short-term trend line which we have broken, so I'll take that away. Of this consolidation, yes, okay, I'm happy with that. So that's my overall view of the dollar index for now. I would say that it looks like we might see it drop down to a support, maybe further downside potential as well. Okay. Hey, good morning from Uganda. How are you doing? Hey, Mina, how are you doing? I'm doing very well, Diana. So with that said, with that expectation for the dollar index to possibly weaken further down towards that 103 and maybe 102.80, then looking at the other charts, this was the Kiwi dollar, did not trigger to the downside, so we can take that away. On the H1 time frame, it that one away as well. So I found a good support at this point here. Seems to have found a good support at 0.59. Okay. 0.59 found a good support. Looking at the trend line again, still holds, still makes sense. Now I'm looking at this as dollar weakness could push this $3 up, right? From this high point here coming down to this trend line, could bounce off. Okay, let's look at this. Some checks first. 3.6 right there. Very choppy at this point. I would say that if the dollar index does drop down to this side, then we could see this trade up. Right? It's formed a bit of a, what do we have here? Right? A bit of a double bottom. Look for this to bounce back up. But I would say that in terms of an entry, it's going to be not a great place to be entering a trade. Right? Why I say that is because there are a lot of tails, a lot of retracements that got rejected for this double bottom back up. Check some levels. H4 time frame works. Pop up level here that makes this one away. Found a good support. Looking at it on H1 again. Two things you can do. There are two things you can do. One is you could try and trade it to the upside. More risky, right? It's a big downtrend. It's risky to try and trade it back up. But if you were looking to trade it back up, you could be looking for 0.5925. Stop loss would be about 25 pips. Take profit, I would try up to this point of 50 pips towards that trend line. Okay, so I think that you could be looking for that. Is price moves up, triggers this level, trades up to the trend line before possibly turning back down again. Counter trend trade, a little bit more risky for that rebound. Alternatively, I would prefer to look for, if we are wrong on this, so it sits there in consolidation, and we actually see the Kiwi dollar continue to weaken. Right? If we see the Kiwi dollar continue to weaken, maybe even dragged down by the overcast the Chinese economy is having on the markets, I would actually prefer this trade instead. So below 0.59 or even at 0.59, if it closes below 0.59, very tight stop loss, no more than 20 pips, right? That's very generous at 20 pips. And your take profit could be down to 50 pips. I would prefer this move instead. Okay, so this is the, I would say, counter trend. Counter trend move to the upside. Then I would say this one, I would like this one more as trend following. Make sense? Does this make sense? Let me know. So how I look at this is I would sell 0.59, stop loss 20, profit 50. Right, so we know we can see this dropping, but I think even with the dollar index weakening, we might see this push down. On the flip side, you might even see, I'll update you on the Discord if this goes up slightly before turning back down. You might have a slightly early entry on rejection as well. Okay, so could retrace and turn down. I'll be looking for it to break. Alternatively, I would say that it could get up to this 38.2 and turn back down as well. So just be careful on that counter trend. Okay. Then looking at the Aussie dollar, right? Same thing. It's did not trigger to the downside. Aussie dollar finding good support at this point. I would prefer this Aussie dollar bounce compared to the Kiwi dollar bounce. Okay, why I say that is because you can see the difference here between the Aussie. Not a lot of tails, not a lot of big spikes compared to the Kiwi dollar, a lot of tails and spikes. So I look at this and I would say that if the dollar does continue to weaken, if the dollar continues to weaken, you could be looking at 6415, stop loss 30 pips, take profit back up to that 50 pip level, back towards that resistance. You might even be able to go 20 pips on this or 25 pips on this, but I'll say 30 at a maximum. And given that trend line would not fit here, or it's rather somewhat broken, that trend line, could be looking at something like this as well. It doesn't fit very well. Could be breaking to the upside at this point. Previous, we're looking at just the bodies. We're looking at that. So it does look like it could bounce better than the Kiwi dollar. So again, there is that two suggestions. Kiwi dollar, we could look for a rebound, but I'll be looking for trend following scenario. Aussie dollar, I would say I like a rebound a bit more at this point. Okay. There was a question here about swing trading. Do we typically need to observe the candle to make sure it's a strong breakout before entering trade? I think setting a sell stop order like this, definitely, right? Especially for swing trades. From my point of view, my experience, I like to see the candle close before I do get into a trade, because you don't want to have a spike trigger your trade before and then retrace completely. So I would say it'll be more manual activation. I would want to see it break above a level, close above a level strongly, close above an area strongly before I would get into a trade. Hope I answer your question there, Palm. Okay, so Aussie dollar 6415, 30 pip stop loss, 50 pip take profit. 6415, stop loss 30, take profit 50. This is counter trend. Right, I put it there just to forewarn you that it's going to be a little bit, could be a little bit more tricky. This trend following. Hi Robbie, how are you doing? Okay, like this, back of that. See, that's coming back down again. Although you see the Aussie dollar sitting, not dropping as much as the Kiwi, sitting right there. Then onto the US yen, like Bjorn was asking. Also, Bjorn was asking for. US yen, we were talking about the intervention zone between 145 and 146. As it broke up towards 146.50, we were looking maybe a breakout to the upside, but we were still considering a possible intervention. At this point, although we did see price break down, right, break down from that trend line, I would not say that this was an intervention. This was really because, right, this was really because of what happened on the dollar, where it tested that resistance and pushed back down. So we saw a similar move here on the US yen. Okay, still stuck, well stuck in that range of 145 and 146.50. So at this point, I would say that clear out some lines. Don't want too many lines. That trend line is broken, so we can take that one away. Adjusted this downwards 40s. That's broken as well. Okay, so we can actually do without this trend line. Can do without this trend line. Then check our fib levels. Moved up quite nicely, finding this broke below 23.6, finding that support at 145. So with that, would it consider 20.6? Okay, so I would be looking at the US yen. Check one more. Okay. Anticipating that the dollar could push down lower, we're possibly going to look at a further retest or continuation back down. And I like that it's found a good strong rejection of 146.50. Okay, so now that it's come back down, found this level, do one more test here. And the rebound has failed to break above that 38.2 level. What I would anticipate here on the US yen is for it to sit along this point, right? I think it's going to sit along this level. If we do see the dollar break down towards 102.80, then we're going to see this crack lower. Okay, so do nothing on the yen right now unless it breaks below 38.2, which is 144.60. Stop loss would be about 40 pips. Take profit could go down to 1:1 at about 60, or it could go down to almost 120 to the downside towards that 61.8 level. It is still a little bit, I'll tell you that it is still a little bit of a question mark on what could happen here. Right? It's going to bounce around. It's not formed a clear direction yet. So it's a little bit questionable of what could happen here. But what I would prepare for is if it does break down an early entry, you could do an early entry at below 145, 144.80. Stop loss 30 pips. Take profit 140, or even downside. I like that. I like this a lot. I like the look of this a lot more. Right, as it breaks down, push lower, breaks the support to the downside. Could retrace, it could retrace back, right? But I'll be looking for this continuation. Okay, so I'll be looking for this move. So for it to come down, now bouncing back up, might find some resistance along this point. Look for it to, might find some resistance along this point. Look for it to trade back down. 144.80, 30 pip, stop loss, 80 pip, take profit. I like that one. So sell 144.80, stop loss 30, take profit 80. There again, you notice that towards the end of the week, of last week, for a long time we haven't heard much from the BOJ about intervention. That's also maybe because why we saw the yen drop. So I think that at 145.40 along this range, a little bit less risk of the intervention. I think we could see a natural push to the downside. Okay, so I like, okay, I'm happy with that. Any questions so far, let me know. And also, if you can help me out, click that like and subscribe button. YouTube, TradingView, trading.live, help me out. Click that little rocket ship button or the thumbs up button. Pound dollar is something that you might be very interested to trade, but I would say don't rush into anything right now. Why I say that? You can see that since Thursday, well, even whole of last week, right? Monday, I'll highlight this for you guys. On Monday last week, about there, started at this point, came all the way down, and when it saw a Tuesday high of about that point, Tuesday high of about that point, and once it broke up into this level, then we've seen the pound dollar pretty much sit in that range there, right? So it looks like it's stepping up on the range with no clear directional bias right now. It's sitting right across since early August, right? It broke down, pushed back up, sit in that range. Then now push back down, sitting in that range again. So what I would say is that the pound dollar is likely to continue within this range. What I would be looking for is if it could push up, test that resistance before turning back down again. Okay, so I'll be looking for that. So a sell, say about 1.278, 0.2775. Stop loss will be very tight at about 25 pips. Take profit could come back down to 60 pips to the downside. I'll look for this to stay within that range. Look for this major range to be respected. Test that resistance before pushing back down. All right, makes sense? No? Pound, dollar weakness could push it up, or pound pressures could sell it back down. So sell at 1.2785, 1.2775, stop loss 25, take profit 6. 775. Stop loss 45. Take profit. Yeah. Look for that retrace, test, and reject of that resistance back down towards this support level. From support level, if it does break this point, we could look at further downside potential, but I think this would be a reasonable first part of the move. Okay, we have it. Pound, dollar. Good. Then onto the euro dollar. What you guys should also notice is that looking at all the news for the next 2 days, no major news events. That's going to play in terms of how price moves. I think it will be a bit dependent on the developments in China. It will be dependent on how the dollar index moves. The euro dollar, we did well, right? It rejected that resistance level before turning back down, but that's last week. That trend line is done as well. Take that away. Take all that away. I would anticipate a very similar move here on the euro dollar, similar to the pound dollar. What I mean by that is seems to have found a bit of a bounce, and I'm possibly looking for this to retest that resistance before trading back down again. I think the question is what happens at 1.0910. Okay, if I were to test this, I'm just trying to see. I know a lot of you like to do this. Is that correct me if I'm wrong? Mike's a bit of a, what do you call this? Anyone wants to tell me what this is? Anyone? Divergence, good one, Anchor. What kind of divergence is this? Bullish divergence, good. There is actually a name of this. Divergence, yes. Yeah, this is also because I've been talking to so many of you. I know what are you looking at, what kind of patterns you guys are looking for. I'm just trying to integrate it for you guys just to see, give you something that you've been looking for and relate to. Divergence. I was thinking that it's more a hidden divergence. I was thinking, I don't use the divergence a lot. I was thinking this looks a bit like a hidden divergence. Might be wrong, but something to support the idea that we might see this push up before turning back down again. Okay, so there looks like there's a bit of a divergence there. That's why we see this pushing higher. What I'll be looking for is a test of 1.090. Right, 1.0920. If it rejects, we look to sell this down. So 1.0910. Stop loss very tight, 20 pips. Take profit could be down to 60 pips. Back down again. We can take this away. So I'm looking for that rebound because of the divergence. Then we could look to sell down at 1.0910. Stop loss 20. Take profits. Very good. That would be a very good risk to reward trade with very low, very tight stop loss as well. So I'm looking for a reaction along that resistance. If it does break above this point, then We might be looking at continuation to the upside, but I'll tell you more about that as that develops. All right, I'm looking for a similar move to what we saw on Thursday last week. Who trades a divergence? Put into chat. Do you normally look for divergence? I know who is supposed to, who does look at divergence, but anyone else, if you do trade a divergence, let me know. Put it. Continuation of, okay, so it's not a hidden divergence. The bullish divergence. Push back up, or we see that come back down. All right, if you do look at divergence, put into chat, let me know. Then onto the US Swiss franc. Did very nice, did come down as that level, bounce back up, break above. We saw that work out quite nicely. Take all that away because it's messing my chart up terribly. Right? Right now it's completely, well, not completely, retraced off that top of 0.8828 or 8830, threatening that trend line and threatening that support level at 8800. If the dollar index does continue to weaken, you see it's sitting right there. If it continues to push down, then we could look at this pushing lower, which would look very similar to this move that we saw on the 14th of August. Only difference is that if it does break down, you would see that it would have broken that trend line as well. Right, that trend line has been holding quite strong, or even a more recent trend line in this fashion. Right, so I'll be looking for that to break on the dollar, possible dollar weakness. You could be looking to sell down 8775, 8780, so around that point. Stop loss 25, take profit, I'll go down 70 pips. Right, it does need to break these levels there. Okay, it does need to break below this trend line for that to happen. Head and shoulders. No, I don't see a head and shoulder pattern here. No, I don't see a head and shoulder pattern here. The most might be a double top. But I don't like this double top because we don't see a very big strong level here. So I would say it's a break of that support level, a break of that trend line, then that recent low, just bit of an early entry. So we could even be looking at 8775, stop loss 30, take profit 65. Right, break below that previous low. So I would say for this, and you see here we are covering based on what we were talking about here in the summary sheet. We are talking about dollar weakness scenario, dollar strength scenarios, a rebound before that dollar strength returning. So we're covering, pretty much covering the bases. So make sure you don't jump into all the trades. Might not be all at the same time. It will just a bit of a staggering of trades, not a stacking, but a staggering. So it's timing rather than entering all of it at the same time. Okay, so 8775, stop loss 30, take profits 5. 0.85, stop loss 30, take profits. There we go. There we go. Waiting for reaction along 135.80. So that was the US CAD. What happened? It went up very close to 135.80. It went to 135.75, 5 pips away to that resistance level. It did very nicely. It did bounce off that trend line, test that resistance area, and now looking like it's pushing back down. And like Jaco was saying, is that we are looking at a possible different chart, but a possible head and shoulder pattern. Right, a possible head and shoulder pattern here. So what I'm looking for in this case is a break of the trend line, which is happening right now. Look at that, a break of the trend line below 1.355 to this point, which is coming very close. Okay, so if this candle closes this way, or it closes slightly 1.3525, I would say that you could look to sell this down. Again, dollar weakness scenario, stop loss 25 pips, 30 pips even. Take profit, we could go down to that tip level, but you might want to consider some points at this 30 pips. So you could be looking at a 1:1 or 1:2 risk to reward ratio to the downside there on the US CAD. On the Loonie, so that's 1:1, 1:2 was a support level. I kind of like how this is setting up. It is going to be dependent on the weakness of the dollar, but if that does break down, we could see good downside potential onto the US CAD. Okay, so 1.3525, stop loss 30, take profit. Sell, sell 1.355, stop loss. Let's not buy. Okay, 525, stop loss 30, take profit. There we go. And this is because we saw a good reaction along that resistance level that we had previously stated. Right? Makes sense? Good. I like that too. On to gold. Gold saw this test. That trend line bounce back down towards that support. Right? And then if I drag this right across, we were just talking about this earlier today with a coaching trader, a trader on my coaching session, where we were looking for this, and it was at that point. We were looking at this at 12 o'clock. We're talking about this, saying as a test and rejection of that trend line, looking for it to come down towards that 85 support. So hope you got into that trade downside. Now at this point in the middle, I think that we are looking for it to come down towards that support, right? So it needs to come down towards this point. And you see here that it's a bit curious, a little bit curious, because as much as we're seeing that dollar weakness possibly come around, gold is pushing down. So it looks like gold should be pushing up as dollar comes down. It is now not moving in that relation. So just be a bit extra careful. Look for a reaction along that support level. The bottom of this trend line is test point. We have that. Okay, so I would say that if it does break below this 1885 or 1886 level, it could see it come down towards 1870, 1878. But I think that more likely I would like it bounce, then after that turn back down. So I'm looking for a reaction along 1886, possibly to bounce before pushing lower. So it needs to break 1886 before we'll see 1875. Could bounce from 1886 support to break 1886 trade down to 75. This summary sheet getting longer and longer in terms of how I write it up. Okay, so reaction could bounce, but we need to break this point before we could find. Hope that makes sense to you guys. Alrighty. Okay. Any further questions? There was some questions about the US 30. I will add this, not today, but I'll add this as I do up some further lines and analysis on this. We'll start adding some other instruments or some other instruments our analysis as well. So if there's anything else that you'd like me to add onto our daily session, do put it into the chat or give me a feedback, let me know. I'll do that. Yes, last week we were also discussing about a adding the cryptocurrency as well. So anything you want more information on, you need more help on, put it into the chat. Let me know. You guys have been good followers, good regular followers on this session. So if you have any other questions, do put into the chat and let me know. If not, thank you, Goju. The link again is there. Do jump onto the Discord channel and I will catch you there. We can do our discussions there. Please trade well, trade safe. If you're in Discord, if not, I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much, Vel. Thank you, BL. Thank you, everyone. Take care now. Bye. Thank you, Marinas. Thank you, Anka. Scalping strategies, we have to do it on a live trading session. It's hard to pre-plan scalping strategy. So we'll do it as sometimes during big news events. Hey, Carson, have a nice day. Take care now.